regard to like the Vedas and the name of Krishna, and you know, we all the whole there's a sort of like interesting kind of like, sometimes the Vedas are like, you know, deficient in some ways, or they're striving for the thing, whatever. Other times we're striving to sort of give Vedic, you know, authority to certain kinds of things. There's an interesting relationship that our tradition has with the Vedas. They function in some context in one way, and in other contexts in another way. I find that, but
I've been thinking about that a lot, how people call it Vedic knowledge. And the thought came to me, I think inspired somehow by the energetics of this meeting, of actually what Lord Chaitanya and the Goswamis have given is more than the Vedas. It's beyond the Vedas. They've actually brought something the Vedas haven't even touched in a way. Yeah. And so, but somehow as Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we're deferring to the Vedas to authoritize, if that's the word, what we're doing.
Legitimize,
legitimize, but it's more. It's given by God himself.
Yeah.
Literally, this is God being like, this is actual Veda.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I think in our for instance, like even like the Gayatri mantra and the Gaudiya Mat. I mean, the Gayatri mantra is like the quintessential Vedic Brahminical mantra, right? That's like that. But then I guess then Guru Maharaj, drawing out the inner meaning of that, making it in one sense much more than the Veda. Much more than, you know, but at the same time, yeah, it's funny. It is interesting. I say this in light of a conversation with, or a kind of talk that was at the Center for Hindu Studies the other day with. We have someone called Professor Alexis Sanderson who's here, who's like the world expert on Tantra, Kashmiri Shaivism, and just he's like the man. You know, he's been studying this stuff for 60 years or whatever it is, and can read all. It's incredible. But he was explaining how like those who sort of follow the Tantra, they're pretty fine being distinguished in a sense, you know, from, you know, the Vaishnavas are all from early on. The Vaishnavas are always kind of, they want to in somehow or other remain, you know, connected with this sort of broad Vedic model in some way, even though the hardcore Vedic people would see them as not really, you know, you're definitely not Vedic, you know. I mean, but the Vaishnavas kind of, you know, always sort of like trying to imbue things with sort of a Vedic flavor, but yet kind of also going beyond the Vedas as well, you know. There's a funny relationship with the Vedas.
Well, I mean, isn't that done for people who need that? You know, like people who only like honor you if you're legitimized by, you know, particular sections of the Vedas. Isn't it like that?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I think there's that, but there's also, of course, always the danger in that, or not the danger, whatever you want to say, but like one of the sort of like effects of that is like sometimes the end is lost in a sense, and like the means can become the thing itself. You know, like we kind of buy into our own propaganda in a sense. I mean, that it's just to frame it in such crass terms, of course, is not. I mean, we in Jiva Goswami in his Tattva Sandarbha and the whole thing there, which is like it's all about the Bhagavatam status is like equal to, and yet also in a sense greater than the Vedas. You know, there is that sort of like double relationship. You know, because it fulfills the Vedas, so it's both Vedic and more than Vedic, you know, in a sense, or not more than Vedic, but better than. It's really interesting. But just in light of kind of how the sort of pervasiveness of like, and how important it is for so many of us to say, oh, Vedic, Vedic, this is Vedic.
Well, you know, Gurudev liked to talk about how like he talks about these two lines of the Vedas, like the evolutionary line and the revolutionary line, right? Yeah. And he was like pointing out how, like, you know, there's that, you know, there's Sarvadharma Prityaja, and then there's also, what's that famous verse spoken to Uddhava, Tasmat Tvam Uddhavochudya Chodanam Pratichodanam, right? Where like there are these great like Krishna's kind of like developing this line of progressive line of evolution step by step, but then he also in some places he's like, forget all of that, like just let's follow this Bhagavad Dharma, just listen to me. And Gurudev, he said something like, I'm permanently surprised by this. Like Gurudev himself was like this is astonishing that Krishna's doing that.
Yeah. Is- But so, but yeah, the Gaudiya Math, and I mean our Math in particular, in terms of the logo or whatever, the Gayatri Muralishta Kirtana, that we are the Saraswat kind of line is like we're the ones who are like have made the Gayatri mantra like kind of quite central to the Brahma Gayatri, quite that very kind of interesting. So there's it's.
But to Sridhar Maharaj's explanation of that, like that, like you won't find that, right?
You won't find exactly. It's kind of it's actually very subversive in a sense, isn't it? It's like it's both connecting it to Om, Gayatri, Veda, etc. But yet also kind of there's both the kind of accommodation of and being part of, but also subverting the whole thing. The revolutionary, it's kind of not Gayatri at all in a sense, or I mean in the way that it's commonly understood. It's the radically different. But yeah, no, just the image that came from this though was like kind of like that, just like like the Vedas worshipping, or kind of trying to kind of say, or like the Veda, like the Veda Stuti, we're trying to get a glimpse or praise or whatever, just like struggling to sort of like can't quite get it out, I mean, but there's an effort to do so, and it manifests in the Upanishads or whatever it might be in the in the various Vedic hymns and the Upanishads. Yeah, but in doing it, but it's a striving for the glorification of Krishna, but it taking kind of different forms and kind of slightly indirect.
It's kind of like our gurus. They're like using the Vedas when it suits them and dismissing it when it doesn't.
That's exactly what it is. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's funny. It's exactly that.
We've actually got our own program going on, But if we're, if the occasion suits it, then we may, it's like kind of like how Mahaprabhu has his own Sampradaya, right? But to make some people happy, we'll say we're the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya. We're in the Brahma Madhva line. Actually, we've got our own thing going on. We don't care, what they think.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Which is kind of like the spirit of the tantric teachings, like you were talking about. They specifically delineate themselves in the Vedas. But as Vaishnavas, our approach is to do both. Like we'll include ourselves in the Vedas and delineate ourselves in the Vedas simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly.
Like there's that section in Chaitanya Charitamrita when Mahaprabhu meets with these followers of Madhvacharya, and Mahaprabhu just outright like rejects their conception.
Yeah, and actually says your Tomar Sampradaya or something like that.
Right, your Sampradaya.
Your Sampradaya, exactly.
Right.
Very, yeah, that's it. That is another. That's a whole nother sort of can of worms. The Madhva,
right?
Like whatever that. Gurudev says he's got that. There's the chapter in Divine. Is it Affectionate Guide or whatever the blue covered one? The blue covered one.
Affectionate Guidance. Yeah.
Yeah, he says when we need to do something formal, we can begin with all this
Krishna
Madhva,
yeah.
All this, but actually, it really, of course, it begins with maybe
Mahaprabhu
Madhavendra Puri and Mahaprabhu exactly.
Yeah, that actually on that point, I never know whether, because Gurudev said Mahaprabhu Sri Chaitanya, but the verse before Madhavendra Puri, sometimes it's like, well, you feel like, oh, maybe we're meant to sing that too.
Sing it too. Yeah, exactly.
Especially on Madhavendra Puri's appearance.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's another topic.
Yeah.
Oh, very, very nice point raised.
There is one thing that came to my mind when you were discussing about this. We tend to think about the Vedas as what Vyasadeva wrote, but sometimes we also think that Veda is what Krishna told to Brahma. So that is the original Veda. But it is also what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told to Haridas. That's the same thing. That's also Veda. This thing just came to my mind like that, you know, like even that is Veda, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is telling to Haridas,
yeah,
because
yeah,
the same Krishna is telling to Brahma or something like that.
yeah. Always good to bear that in mind. It's true. When dealing with the
Yes.
pastimes of Mahaprabhu, how easy it is to forget. So-
Yes. Yes.
But that means
Bhaga.
Veda is also in Veda is also Bengali then. Just like-
Oh.
that's-
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like when you say Mahaprabhu speaking Veda to Haridas, that feels like, I don't know, it almost feels like an insult.
yeah.
Like it's so much more.
So to Mahaprabhu.
I don't know, I guess I have my own prejudice about the thing.
The Vedas.
But, you know, like there's this one talk where Srila Maharshi, someone's like quoting some rishi, and Srila Maharshi chuckles and he's like, the rishis, they don't know anything. like we're talking like way up here and you're suddenly bringing it way down here. Like
Yeah.
the rishis are like this very generic, you know, very generic
Generic.
conception, you know, but like going way up to what Mahaprabhu is, you know, Krishna conception, Mahaprabhu Gaur, you know, like this is so high, you know, this is so high.
But it's
So
also
high.
interesting because it's like it's not. I guess the difficulty is it's like it's contained in it in potential form, isn't it? So like, you know, the ripened fruit of the
Right,
Vedic.
right.
So it's there. It's not that it's not there. It's not that Veda.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it is all given there, right? Right.
It's being successively unpacked, like
Yeah,
successively
exactly.
unpacked
Yeah,
in
exactly.
deeper and deeper ways. I was
Yeah.
even going to add along that, because I've thought all the same line, is that also Srila Maharaj has given us English Veda. It has the same absolute perfection, but he's done it in the English language somehow. He's given Veda, you know, like.
Well, I mean, that is what the Shastra is. It's what's coming, what's revealed in the heart of the sadhu, right? That's ultimately what it is, essentially what it is. In whatever language it's in, you know.
Yeah, that's the. I guess that there is. I mean, this is a whole nother topic that we can probably put off to another time. But just briefly, to that there is like where I guess yes, becomes kind of controversial at times, you know, because like if it, I mean, that was the whole thing surrounding, you know, Saraswati Thakur and, you know, those eventually who kind of like ended up sort of diverging from him, his disciples, you know, and oh, he's you know,
yeah, I was thinking of that. Yeah,
we kind of put some things together and gave it a Vedic sound, and you know, we were passing this off, and then Guru Maharaj is, you know, that was meant to disturb his faith, and oh my god, then you know, I have doubt in you know, in Saraswati Thakur, but his response being, but who is Saraswati Thakur? But you know, it's not that he's just the rishis of the past, he's a modern day rishi essentially. So you know, he has that ability to, but then of course, like, it gets complicated, doesn't it? Because you kind of also want to feel there's some reference point for something, because you know, like, it's not just you know, because I mean, whatever generations
it can
down,
turn into
that
a
is
free
like
for all.
completely off, you know what I mean? You know, there needs to be some reference point for the whole thing. Doesn't there? So yeah, that's yeah, sorry, that's another subject. We don't that's to mention it briefly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky point. I mean, that's where like Guru Parampara comes in, and right, and you know, and seeing like how the Vaishnava has been recognized, you know, by other Vaishnava.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it is something that could turn into a free for all, like if you emphasize that too much.
To the point of forgetting the tradition in a sense, or what's come before, you know, what this is meant to be in a sense, kind of. So I guess that yeah, you know, the importance, of course, of chastity to one's guru and one's, but also having some awareness of the flow in a sense, you know what I mean? So you have some ability to appreciate actually as well, kind of you know, when it is revealing. Yeah.
Hmm.
Sorry.